My name is Megan Lowe, and I work as a research and development engineer. And I've been here for a little over 2 years, and I started right after college. Yes, I've been I've been working as a research and development engineer in the medical device industry for about 2 years now. What my company does, I guess we help solve this thing called blood regurgitation. Sorry, but essentially that's when the heart and the blood in the heart goes through the heart in one direction, and there are these valves that the blood passes through the heart, and these valves keep the blood from going in the wrong direction. But sometimes when people are older or they have like some certain diseases, the valve can be a little too large and it could cause some leakages that the blood can accidentally slip through. So in that case, in some cases, the blood will actually go backwards. And my company is currently creating a device that helps prevent that and stop that from happening so that the blood can just go in one direction and the heart could pump normally like expected. So currently, my company is very pretty early in the design phase. So what I get to work on from my day to day is actually get to design this part, because I feel like depending on the company you're at and depending on the stage of what your project is on, you could be doing completely different things just from a person in my industry and my profession. So I've been pretty lucky. I'm pretty lucky that my job gets to actually design and work on the early stages where you get to use creativity to really do your job and just create something special. In general, like engineering is usually when you apply like science and math and all these other like physics and all of that to solve a problem or solve an issue. So that's generally what engineering is all about. And mechanical engineering, when I first learned about it, I just assumed it was very like hands-on and you just do things with your hands, you get to build stuff, which I got really excited about because I love to build stuff with my hands and I just love to like make things in general. Um, and I guess the more I learned about it and the more we did in classes, that assumption is very much correct. Like you basically get to build a lot of things. You get to work your hands, get your hands dirty. But I think what maybe different mechanical engineering from other engineers is the industry is so very large, and what you do is mostly the hardware portion of it. So really getting to work on like physical aspects and physical things that you could hold in your hand, or so such things as like cars, phones, even. Um, I do medical devices, like anything you could get your hands on, you could potentially work on, help design, help build, help test, so that people who use these can use them well and that these products work well. So that's essentially what a mechanical engineer does. So most engineers will have to get like a Bachelor of Science degree, like an engineering degree from some school. That's pretty much the bare minimum because some companies, they, depending on the industry they're in, but most companies, since they are like regulated by like the government and stuff, just in general, um, sometimes they do require their engineers to actually have an engineering degree because I have met some people who they work engineering jobs, but they don't have the background and not the background, but they don't have that degree, that like, that piece of paper saying that they graduated from college. And because of that, sometimes some companies won't be able to offer them the engineering titles, even though they actually do the same things that engineers do. So I think the bare minimum is probably at least a Bachelor of Science in some sort of engineering. And but to get there, you could definitely take like community college classes. Like there are many different ways to to get that degree from a any college. So you could do a 2 year program and a 4 year program, or a 3 year program and a 1 year program. But there are many different ways depending on like who you are and what suits you best. There are definitely many options, and depending on like financial aspects of it, you could do a 4 or 2 year program. But as long as you have that degree that says engineering, then you should be set. And most people do end up going to get their master's in engineering if they want to specialize in something or just learn more about it. And I guess today that's becoming more and more popular. But for the record, you mostly just need that Bachelor of Science degree. Interesting story. So when I was younger, I used to like I was kind of that creative kid who would love doing art. Like every single year, I would pick up like a different like art thing to do. Like one year, I would pick up sewing. The next year, I would like pick up like knitting or like painting, and like just every year I would try something new. So I was really huge in art. And when it came to high school, you kind of had to pick your profession or at least have somewhat of an idea of what you wanted to major in college. And I guess ever since a young age too, I also was really into healthcare. And I guess based on my personality and like my work ethic, I could see myself like majoring in biology and then going on to apply to medical school and go through medical school and then be a doctor. Like that was kind of my dream at the time. And as college came closer, I realized that design was also an option, like designing it as a major. And since I really loved art, I also thought design would be really cool to like design posters, design things you see just on the street. So that seemed pretty cool. And but at the same time, this my senior year of high school, I took physics for the first time, and I really enjoyed the class. Like it was really cool to see how things worked and how things move in conjunction with each other. So that really sparked my interest in engineering, at least, because for the most part, I thought engineering was just like a job that guys did, and they just worked on cars, fixed cars, and that was basically I thought engineering was all about. I had no idea there were so many different types of industries, and there's so much more than just cars. um, Essentially, I began to see like more like some of my female peers in high school decided to go into engineering. So the summer before college, I was really torn between going into design, um, medicine, or engineering. And I had a mentor who told me, like, he had like a life changing story. But essentially, what I got from my conversation with him was that because I didn't have that burning passion to do medicine, because I was torn between the three different industries, I felt like it wasn't the best choice for me because medicine is you really need that dedication to go into it and finish it and all of that, which I felt like if I was so indecisive about it in the first place, I probably didn't have a burning passion to do it. So I was torn between design and engineering. And I think my decision was kind of based on like the future stability because at the time I didn't really know if design had like a super strong like financial future for me, and versus I knew engineering was a little more financially stable. So I went in engineering because I figured both industries I would really enjoy very much. And then I realized that like the more I learned about engineering, I did realize that in engineering you can actually design. So I so which is kind of so then I made it my ultimate goal because I really like design, engineering, and healthcare that I wanted to become an engineer in the medical device industry, which is kind of like healthcare, and then get to design the stuff that people use. So essentially, that's what I'm doing now. So I'm very grateful and happy that I went the route that I did because I kind of got to incorporate all those three things I really wanted to go into when I was younger. And now I get to do it like every day. I think the main characteristic that most engineers need because they do in their day-to-day jobs is just knowing how to problem solve because you do run into problems every single day, and the whole issue that every engineer is trying to solve is a problem, so that's what they're trying to fix essentially. So that's like the basis of all engineers, I would say. But on top of that, you do work in a lot of teams, so just knowing how to communicate well and how to work well with others is also very important because you do this on a day-to-day basis. You have to communicate with others to get like your idea across or ensure that what you guys are working on together makes sense for every single one in that group. And I guess also being a good listener is very important because sometimes people tend to have like varying opinions, and I guess you could also notice this in just in life in general as you get older. But having just good communication skills is actually very important as for an engineer, which people don't really talk about because the stereotype is also that engineers are very quiet, they don't talk much, don't work well with others, but in actuality, that's those characteristics are actually very important to just like a day-to-day job and being an engineer too. So most mechanical engineers, we learn this um, in school. Essentially, it's like this program called Cell, or just any like 3D modeling program, because most of, I guess, especially in during these times, everything is on the computer now. So most of what we design, we usually model up on the computer. So it's like a nice polished um, design of what you want to design. So it's easier for to send this design to other people. So there's many different programs. The one I learned in college personally, and it's what I use in my work today, is called SolidWorks. But it's very similar among like other different kinds of 3D model software. So that's the main one you use. And then I guess on a day-to-day, you also use a computer, just general, because it's very, very popular these days. But I think those are the mandatory ones, aside from a notebook and a pen. So you could do some calculations and all that, and a calculator, because you do a lot of calculations. I guess as engineers, as a mechanical engineer, also you learn this in school too, like how to use certain machines that you like to build things. But today, a lot of people also, there are other companies that help you make these things too. So instead of having to make them yourself, if it's like too hard, then you could just call up another like external company that makes these for you, and you just send them your design that you model up on your computer. Then they will take that design and then they'll actually make the part for you and then ship it over so you have it. But yeah, most engineers or most mechanical engineers will also know how to use certain like, large machines like a mill or a lathe. So you could create something cool from like a block of wood or a block of like metal. Some do. I think that also depends on the industry you're in and your company. I do know that some people, like their company, may have different sites, like different locations, so they may need to travel back and forth just to communicate with other teams if they're on the same project. Because even though we've gotten really used to communicating like virtually, especially through the pandemic, communicating in person is always the most efficient and probably the easiest because it's easier to see stuff firsthand, especially when you're talking about having to make things and maybe there are these issues that come up and it's really hard to see or like show problems like through a screen when it's like physical and like in your hand. So sometimes going there in person is a lot easier and faster. Um, or a lot of mechanical engineers also have to fly or travel to other like manufacturing sites where because sometimes or most of the time I feel like mechanical engineers they will make and design the part, but then once you talk about having to build something in large quantities for like everyday people to use, that we're talking about like millions and millions of like a single part, and most companies that design don't build all of that at their location, so they will have other companies somewhere else make all of those, and like they're called like manufacturing sites. And so most engineers, or sometimes the engineers will have to go to these manufacturing sites to make sure that what they're building is correct and kind of oversee and do some stuff over there. So yes, there's travel based on your job, your position, location, and just your company in general. I think the best thing I love about it is I guess I define research and development as design. Like essentially what we're doing as research and development engineers, we are building something, we're either building something or we're improving something by taking apart and seeing what how it needs to be improved if it needs to be improved at all, and then how to improve that. So the research is looking at what needs to be improved and how it can be improved, and the development is what follows after that. So how do you actually improve it? Usually it stems from having to redesign something or how to make it better, and then once you redesign it, you have to build it out and you have to test it to see if it actually works. And then the whole kind of 3-step cycle is the whole like research and development phase. So essentially it's just like design and making sure something works. I think most engineers, compared to other professions and industries, um, we do make a pretty healthy living, and most people live pretty comfortably, like wherever they're located. Um, in the medical device industry in general, that also varies by location and all of that. But I would say it's pretty standard, if not a little higher than like your baseline just engineer. Um, so yeah, I would say it's a pretty healthy living situation, and people live pretty comfortably, especially once they get more experience, and then their salary does increase the longer they work. I don't know if it's the people in my industry per se, but more so people who don't really know what we do, um, like children or like teens or people like trying to choose a profession. Because I definitely did not know what engineering was beforehand. And like I said earlier, I just thought it was a job for guys who worked on cars. Um, and I guess another thing is that I guess another stigma is most people may think that engineers are like quiet and very nerdy, very by the book and all of that. And there are some people like that, but for the most part, engineers are like everyone else. Like anyone could be an engineer. Like you don't need to be like that stereotypical, like nerdy, like student with their like head in the book all the time, which I think is great. So a lot more people can definitely take their chances on engineering and see if they like it. And yeah, like the industry is pretty big. Like you don't have, not everyone's working on cars for sure. There's so many things that people can work on, and it's a lot more exciting than what like movies and other shows can portray engineering as. And I really enjoy the aspect of kind of working that just like 9 to 5, even though it's kind of like 9 to 6, because usually lunch, I guess depending on the company, but in my company, our lunch hour is not included. So we work 8 hours plus the 1 hour lunch. So we're there from like 9 to 6, essentially, 9 hours a day. Um, but I feel like I have that and I really enjoy that part. But some of my friends, they would have to work longer than that and like longer hours, more hours during the week, which sometimes they do, but for the most part, it's pretty constant, which I enjoy. Other negative aspects, I guess for me personally, I feel like it's just the lack of females in my industry and as a mechanical engineer, like in college. There weren't that many female engineers in my classes. Like most of the people were males, so I did have a good amount of like guy friends, which was kind of cool to kind of see how they think and just like interacting with them on a day-to-day basis. So I got pretty close with like some guy friends. Um, but I guess depending on your personality and on your mindset, I could see why a lot of female engineers do tend to drop out when they get older, um, because it's kind of hard to stick with like the guy pack essentially if there aren't that many females around you. But I think nowadays it's getting a lot better. But there's definitely a lot more female engineers going into industry, and I definitely do see it like on social media and like on LinkedIn. Like there are a lot more female engineers now than there were like 5, 10 years ago. So it's definitely getting better. But that's something I do wish would improve within my own life. I think I learned this maybe halfway in my college career, because when I started college, I was actually a biology major, and most of my friends were like biology, animal science, like in that section. So when I started my engineering classes, I wasn't actually able to transfer into engineering until my second year of college. And by then, I feel like once you're second year, people already kind of have like their own friend groups and classes, like who they sit next to and all of that. So I didn't really know anyone in my engineering classes. And because of that, I felt very alone, which I didn't mind. Like, I don't really mind being independent. But later I joined like engineering clubs and met a lot more people. But this was more towards my third year. And once I found more people in my classes, I realized how valuable like teamwork is and how valuable just having other people like with you and like helping you is really important. So I kind of wish I knew that a little earlier. And I guess also not being afraid to ask for help, because I'm very much that independent, um, kind of want to do it myself kind of mindset like growing up. So never really asked for help, but I realized the importance of asking for help just in general to help you on like homework or studying on tests. Like these things you don't realize it, but looking back, that was very, very helpful. And I wished I did that earlier, because I also realized that networking is very, very important. You get to meet a ton of great people, and also you get to learn from a lot of smart and unique, different perspectives, like people who you don't really interact with on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's very important too. And I've also heard of many stories where people actually get their jobs through networking. So I feel like those are very important things that people don't really talk about. Well, that all depends on your company for sure. My company is we're not a large company, but we're definitely small. We're more we're kind of like a in between of a startup and a large company, just based on the fundamentals and how we're structured. But because of that, we do have pretty aggressive timelines, and our team is very small. So I sometimes will work more than 40 hours a week, but generally, most engineers just have their standard 40 hours a week. So this is really nice because after work, you can go home, do your own thing, and then just go to sleep. Next day, you go to work and repeat. And then your weekends are completely free for the most part. I guess you can choose if you want to bring work home with you, but I wouldn't advise it. And I personally don't have to. So once I leave work, work is usually out of my mind, and I'll wait for the next day to worry about work again. And it's nice because every weekend feels like a mini short vacation compared to good college, where I feel like you're always studying. Even on the weekends, you have to study, study, study. So that's one of the great things I like about working, actually. I think a great way, just in general, for any profession is actually going out to talk to people who are in professions that you're interested in, and just reaching out to them, because I also wish I knew this a lot younger, but I feel like people who are working they're very eager to help the younger generation, and the younger people try to find what they want their careers to be. So they're really open to sharing like what they do and trying to help you figure out if what they do is actually what you want. And kind of similar to shadowing, but kind of virtually, I guess. Another way, maybe like the internet has so many resources. You could connect with people on LinkedIn, could reach out to professors or any of that. You could Google like, oh, what does this person do like on a day to day, just to do a little research, which I highly recommend, because before going into engineering, I had no idea what engineers actually do until I did the research and realized that there are so many different types of engineers, and they all do different things. So even from there, I had to research like what every engineer does to kind of figure out which one I wanted to go into. So definitely don't skimp out on doing the research. And I would definitely recommend that for choosing a potential career when you're like in high school and college, because doing the research in the beginning will save you a lot of time from switching majors in college, or even though that is totally fine. And if you are unsure, I would recommend taking different classes to figure out if you're interested in that type of like industry or field. So definitely take your time to explore. But doing research could save you a little bit of time. At least it did for me. I guess the way most people think of engineering, it's very, math and science heavy, which it is. But I feel like there's like recently there's instead of like STEM, it's STEAM now. They included the A, so STEAM, which A stands for art. And I think that kind of beautifully represents engineering because I don't think engineering is just based on like math and science. You definitely need some creativity involved because especially when you're designing, you need you usually have you usually need like some sort of creativity to think out of the box to design something because it's not just like black and white like numbers. You have to think of how it might look, how might other people be able to use this like whatever you're building, and functionality and visibly they kind of have to work together. So there's an aspect to art that is in engineering, which I think most people don't really think about. And I think that's what drew me into engineering because I'm not the type of person who's super like math and science focused. Like I do enjoy math and science, but I'm not strictly math and science and physics. Um, I do have that artsy side of me, so I think that kind of helped me and complemented the engineering side of me. So it allows me to kind of do my best work and kind of pretty do well in designing in engineering. So, and I hope that incorporating that art kind of inspires like more females to go into engineering because usually females may think of it as, oh, I get to work on cars and like these large machines because for sure when I was younger that did not appeal to me at all. Now I do see like autonomous like cars and that seems pretty cool to me. So maybe I might go into the car industry in the future, even though I never thought I would. But I think incorporating art will definitely inspire more females to go at least take a stab at it or even just research what engineering is all about because it is much more than just math and physics and just like reading. And yeah, I think that's what makes engineering really special.